I believe the concept of manifest destiny and the US-Mexican War were not just in many apparent ways. First, let's start with the concept of manifest destiny. These white people believed they had the God-given right to settle the lands of the North American continent from the Atlantic to the Pacific. They believed this because of what they felt was superiority in their race. As the author Reginald Horseman, in his book Race and Manifest Destiny, The Origins of American Racial Anglo-Saxonism, put it, many Americans find comfort in the strength and status of a distinguished race. Now, this is already wrong to begin with, as no race is above another, so the concept of manifest destiny is already flawed. But before I go more into that, allow me to give some context. Due to overlapping trade activities, the US and Britain agreed to joint control of the Oregon Country in 1818. The Hudson Bay Company from Britain saw a lucrative fur business and also oversaw Indian relations north of the Columbia River. Then fast forward to 1842, Oregon fever raged. Not natural disease or sickness, but the term used to describe people who were crazy about traveling on the Oregon Trail. For example, in April 1843, 1,000 people with 100 wagons and 5,000 oxen and cattle gathered in Independence, Missouri in order to travel on the Oregon Trail. Also in 1843, we had Oregon conventions, which is where Democrats and Whig politicians alike would convene in order to claim American sovereignty over the Oregon country. Believing the false claims in the Democratic Party platform that Texas and Oregon already belonged to the U.S., President James K. Polk called for the reannexation of Texas and the reoccupation of Oregon, with 5440 or fight as his rallying cry. Now, I believe it was okay to annex Texas, as Texas became the 20th state in December 1845. I'm okay with that decision because Texas rebelled on their own from Mexico and decided to join the U.S. of its own free will. But Oregon was also part of Britain's territory. They agreed to joint control in 1818, as previously mentioned, and out of nowhere, America claimed sovereignty over it. This was a violation of what was officially a joint control and was totally wrong on America's part. And Manifest Destiny has also led to the US Mexican War, which is also unjust, and I will now go into that. When the Indians started attacking the northern Mexicans' ranches and ruining the economy, President Polk saw an opportunity to acquire land and was prepared to go to war if necessary. Before even negotiating or anything, President Polk already started preparing for war. He ordered the Navy to seize Francisco Bay, and he sent John C. Fremont and an quote unquote exploring party of soldiers into Mexican territory, obviously without Mexico's consent. And then, after all preparations were in place, he sent Louisiana Congressman John Slidell to offer $30 million to Mexico to buy the provinces of California and New Mexico. Now, insulted by America's disregard for Mexico's sovereignty, Mexican officials refused to meet with John Slidell at all. And now war broke out. At this part, I believe President Polk in America was completely in the wrong. It would have been okay if they actually bought the provinces, and I know Mexico refused, but they only refused because of the disregard for Mexican sovereignty on America's part, which was totally wrong. Sending soldiers into Mexican territory without Mexico's consent is utterly disgraceful. Now, as war broke out, many people died, and eventually a treaty was formed, and the U.S. gained some of Mexico's territories. Now, due to the unsatiable greed shown by the US, and the disregard for human decency and human lives, I believe Manifest Destiny and the US Mexican War were completely unjust.